jetzt eine Minute? Okay, all right, all right. Hi and welcome to this panel about gender equality in Europe. My name is Ita Francesca. I work for MEWEM Music Austria and Austrian Music Export. And before I introduce you to the speakers, I would ask my colleague Rainer Praschak to quickly explain what the project MEWEM, which is hosting this panel, is all about.
Thank you, Ita. Yeah, my name is Rainer Praschak. I'm working for MEWEM Music Austria, and I'm the project manager of MEWEM, which is a mentoring program for women in the music industry, which lasts for about 2 years. And actually, the actual mentoring project in Austria will start at the end of September and last until the end of January. And I just will show you a short video because it says quite a lot about the project. Yeah, as I promised, it is really pretty short, but it sums up what the project is all about. Here in Austria, we are matching 10 pairs of mentees and mentors. We have really, really interesting women as mentors and mentees. People like Monika Eigensberger, Radiochefin here in Austria von der ORF, Sandra Walkenhofer, who is here. Astrid Exner, and more. You can find all of that at the website in a few, actually, days. As I said, we're just starting the project. The kickoff will be at the end of September. And yeah, we'll keep you updated on the website, on Facebook, on Instagram, wherever you search for the project. And now have a lot of fun and an interesting panel with my colleague Ita.
All right, thank you, Rainer. I am also, as a matter of fact, happy to announce that I'm a mentee as well within MEWEM, so I'm super happy to be to have been chosen. Actually, one of our guests here is also a mentor within MEWEM program. This is Julia Pop. She is from Romania, and she is the co-founder of Overground Music, which is a PR agency who does also management and booking. Then we have here Masha Peleshko, Ukrainian-born, Viennese-raised musician who gained especially critical acclaim with her songs Sigrid Maurer protest song and Liebe siegt, and has also self-published a book that we might be able to talk about. And then we have Nina Jukic, who is from Croatia but has been living in Austria for, I think, 10 years, around 10 years, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
9 years. She is a musician and a music teacher. She is part of the experimental pop duo Don't Go, which is actually performing at Waves tomorrow at 6:30?
6:45, yeah.
6:45 at Canisiuskirche, so please make sure to check that out as well. And actually, what I wanted to mention, Masha has performed at Waves 2 years ago. So all just a big, huge Waves family, right? Now, before I would like to ask my first question, I want to talk about the title of the panel, because it says gender equality in Europe, West versus East. And this kind of implies a very distinct, clear-cut binary opposition between East and West Europe, which I guess is not as clear-cut as this implies. Because, I mean, geographically, where is East, where is West, Central Europe, what is that all about? Where is what, basically, and also socio-politically, how do you define East, how do you define West? But yeah, so this is an aspect that I wanted to discuss, and it's also kind of within my first question to my speakers here, which is, would you consider yourselves, would you identify as female, as women from Eastern Europe? Masha, you want to start maybe?
I started to identify myself as a Ukrainian Viennese since I was around 20, because I just feel like I know most parts of Ukraine, whereas I don't feel like I have the same knowledge about the whole of Austria, because I live in Vienna, but I've been living here since I was 9 years old. But I think that Vienna is very different in comparison, I don't know, to Innsbruck, for example. I don't know nothing about Innsbruck, but I do lots about Ukraine, because I lived in Kiev. I was born in Zaporozhye, which is in the eastern part, and I lived in the western part near to Lemberg. I also spent most of my summers in my youth on Crimea, back in the time when it was not being held by Russia. So I'd consider myself a Ukrainian Viennese.
Mm-hmm. Julia, what about you, from Romania?
Well, it's very hard to say that I consider myself Eastern European or Western European, because nowadays, with everything being so globalized and with traveling a lot and meeting a lot of people, you kind of have this tendency of losing, or not necessarily losing, but enhancing your identity. So I think that we are European, first of all, and the fact that we were born in the east or the western part of Europe is getting less and less important. Maybe it was important, I mean, for sure it was important 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when Europe was so divided socially and culturally and economically. But now I think it's getting more and more homogenic, let's say. Mm-hmm. So I consider myself European, if I may do so.
Absolutely. Nina, what about you? Because you told me with Croatia,
yeah,
it's neither nor.
Exactly. I mean, first of all, I agree with you, what you just said. I feel the same. Like, this division is maybe a little obsolete already. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, when I see this title, East versus West, somehow I feel like both of them apply to me as a Croatian, and neither, basically, at the same time. So Croatia is kind of a melting pot, really, of influences from all over, from the south, from the east, from the west. I mean, geographically, I think it's really classified more like Central Europe / Southeastern Europe. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's hard to say for me that I'm an Eastern European woman. I really feel like it's more both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially when you consider that geographically, Vienna is located more east than Zagreb,
exactly.
for example.
Yeah.
Vienna is just
exactly
east.
Yeah.
So if we talk about feminism in your countries, how is this concept of feminism portrayed in your countries? How is it performed even within the music industry, but also just in general? Masha?
Yeah, so I think think we'd have to go back in time a little bit, because I think it has to do a lot with gender roles. And since you were talking about the divide between East and West, I feel like it has a very Cold War vibe to it. So, if we're speaking about history, I can see that there is definitely how do you say, there is a common thread of the authoritarian influence of the Soviet Union, which started let me maybe rephrase it a little bit. So we have the authoritarian influence from the Soviet Union, which affected a lot of countries, and Ukraine was also affected by it. I can only talk about Ukraine and the Ukraine view perspective of this, but with authoritarian influence, there is always this picture of masculinity, because authoritarianism means, you know, you have to be strong, you have to project power, strength, and that comes with a very specific picture of masculinity. So you have this divide into gender roles, the masculine and the feminine, and there is a clear correlation between authoritarian regimes and the oppression of women, or everything that is considered to be vulnerable in comparison to masculine power or strength or whatever. So the thing is, when we look at these gender roles and we look at them now, they are still very very up to date. So I don't feel like they changed that much, because you still have this very clear performance of femininity and masculinity, and everything outside of that is considered, you know, deviant and different. So I think even the word feminism during Soviet times was a very shunned word, because they said associated with the bourgeoisie, because the feminism is only something that could concern the elites or something, because there was a very idealized picture of the working woman. The women in the Soviet era, they had to take up a lot of work, since a lot of men died in the Second World War, and they were basically not forced, but like propagandized into being this working woman. And we also had the Soviet era had abortion laws basically since 1920. This is a not commonly known fact, but I think abortion laws in Austria were
which allow abortion
which allow abortion. In Austria it was like 1975, and in the Soviet Union it was like 1920. So on paper you could say that Soviet women were super strong and super emancipated, but the thing is, of course, that you had a lot of unpaid domestic labor, a lot of emotional labor, raising the children, being a mother, and being also like the working woman. It's a little bit much, you know. And the thing is, you couldn't express yourself outside of that binary. So you had to comply to some kind of stereotypical gender role, and so it's a little bit complicated, and this is still ongoing in Ukraine, where you have this very negative connotation to the word feminism. So, for example, I asked a lot of my friends, do you consider yourself a feminist? And they're like, yeah, but I don't feel oppressed. So it would be an insult to call Slavic women, okay? I'm speaking of Slavic women right now. It would be an insult to call them meek or, you know, unempowered, because I consider Slavic women to be one of the strongest and, you know, very productive, very, very, very powerful women. But on the other hand, they are still caught up in this these gender roles, where they cannot really express themselves outside of the binary. So you have this thing. There's this great saying. Someone once said to me, if you want to find out how misogynistic a man is toward a woman, you have to disagree with him respectfully and see how he reacts to you. So I think this is a very great allegory for this kind of oppression that is going on. As long as you adhere to the
norms,
to the gender norms, you are not being oppressed. You would even consider yourself very empowered because you're working, you're this and that. But on the other hand, you have, of course, data and statistics that show there is a lot of domestic violence going on. There is not enough shelters for women in need for acute situations. So there's like a lot of this going on, and sadly, I feel like this also translates into art and expression and music. So if you're, for example, a very feminine pop star, and you portray all this femininity, you don't find yourself that much criticized, maybe even more criticized by women due to internalized misogyny, so everyone has to adhere to certain standards, but if you want to really make like feminist art that critiques the status quo, then you'll find yourself like in big trouble immediately, because this is where the empowerment ends, and this is oppression, nothing else. So, and we have the same thing, of course, going on in Austria to some forms. Gender equality, is this even possible? It's like we are still struggling to this day with all these things here. So, and even if you look into mainstream pop, for example, What I find interesting is you find a lot of queer-coded expression, which would be considered outside of the binary even. For example, very, very vanity-driven or flamboyant men in pop, which would be considered queer-coded. And I find it very interesting because there is a correlation between homophobia in Eastern Europe and the oppression of women, because it all has to do, again, with this picture of masculinity, this image of masculinity, and men that feel threatened by something that they consider vulnerable. Gay men, for example, considered weak, women, whatever. The list goes on. It doesn't stop here. There's unfortunately a lot going on. So
sorry.
Welcome to my podcast.
Sorry. Basically, also what I forgot to mention earlier is I don't want to really do the. At the end of the panel, you'll have 10 minutes to ask questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand and come up to the mic and ask it in the moment that it comes to your head. All right? Okay. Let's continue maybe with Julia. Can you relate to what Masha just spoke about?
Yeah, totally. Actually, she was talking so passionate that I would really let her go on and on. And on.
Same, but don't do that.
Yeah, because she's telling so many things that are also very true to Romania and to the stereotypes that they are there. Being a former communist country is kind of normal that it's happening. As you said, during communist time, women had this role of, they were wearing so many hats. They had to be good mothers, they had to raise children, they had to go to work, they had to be good wives, and they had to have a very nice social life. So being able to do all these things was really a struggle. Now that the communist regime is no longer, you still have to do all these roles. The patriarchic society didn't forget all the things that the women were doing during communism. So they still have to do all these things, and above all, they have to have a career. They have. It's not compulsory, but it's something that everybody strives to. Yeah. So somehow let's say the objectives that a woman should tick or should check became more and more. And now what I see around me, especially in the music industry, there are women who take management roles or who make a career out of music, but they don't really have this balance between their professional life and their personal life. I don't know any woman who has a brilliant career in music who also has family, children, all the socialist ideals, because I think it's too much right now. I mean, it's too much to do them both with the same, passion and everything. So what I noticed is that when they go for career, they usually neglect the other part, which is not necessarily a good thing.
But how is this viewed in society? Because when I think of like very stereotypical notions of, okay, a woman decides not to become a mother, I mean, how dare she? And decides to go for a career also in Austria, she is regarded as less feminine.
Yes.
Is that the same?
It's the same, but this kind of attitudes are not popular anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are less and less popular, but they are still regarded as not fulfilling all their roles, all their hats that they used to carry and to perform. So it's a difficult situation, the one we are in right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is up to each and every woman in the end. I mean, if they choose career over family life, it's their option. If they choose family life, it's another very good option. If they combine both of them, then it's
And good luck.
perfect. But it's hard to.
Mm-hmm. But this is why it needs more support from institutions, from governments, etc., that need to make it possible for women not to have to choose.
Yeah.
Not only the institutions, but also the men.
Of course, of course. So what's it like in Croatia?
Well, I think Masha and Julia really gave a good foundation and the background, the historical, social background of the whole problem. Maybe I can just say a few words or just a few concrete examples from my personal experience as a musician who started making music in Croatia and then moved to Austria as an adult, basically. And I'm pretty sure that this story probably is not much different in other countries, whether East or West. Simply a young woman deciding she is interested in making music and then facing obstacles along the way. Sometimes really clear obstacles, sometimes very subconscious things that you only realize later are actually standing in your way. I was going through this whole music school system in Croatia, which is a leftover, I think, of the. I don't know if I'm curious if it's like the same in your countries, but music education, classical music education, is very available, very cheap in Croatia. So almost every
and the only one.
And the only one
in Romania, for instance.
Exactly. Do you have
other.
studies of jazz and pop in Romania or no? Okay,
Nope.
Croatia also no. So that's
Only
really
classical music. If
Only
you want to do
classical.
rock or punk, it's up
You're
to
on
you.
your own.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you're on
So
your
same
own.
thing. Yeah. So I went through this whole education system where I was very brave, very good girl, and learned my Bach and Beethoven, but something within me really wanted to write my own songs, but I didn't dare until I was, I think, 21, 2, 3, something like that. With a friend of mine, a woman as well, who didn't have this burden of this education, who was like, yeah, let's write this Blink Blink song, it's so much fun. I was like, oh, but Beethoven, what is he gonna say to my 2 chords? But somehow we decided, okay, let's have a band, because we always wanted to do music, but somehow we never really found good enough guys to play music with, because of course we thought that the only possible way to do music is you are a singer and then you have male people playing the instruments with you. And then when we decided we're going to do it alone, somehow we're going to just play all the instruments we can, as good or as bad as we can, in a kind of a lo-fi pop punk manner, I don't know, that felt quite different, and it was very strange a little bit on the scene at that time. But at the very same time, this was like, I don't know, 2009, 2010, something like that. Something interesting started to happen in the Croatian music scene, and this was just more and more female musicians started doing their thing. And this was not, I'm not talking about the mainstream pop world, because there have always been plenty of female singers, obviously, many of them mothers, but this was somehow really a world that has been perpetuated for the last, I think, 30 years. It's the same names all over and over again. This doesn't change. But somehow this indie layer of music started emerging more and more. And they were really, in that time, so beginning of 2000s, like Nina Romic was one of the first ones who really started writing beautiful songs in the Croatian language, and somehow there was suddenly a wave of mostly acoustic guitar, singer-songwriter kind of genre thing. But then I left to Austria short after, and my Choco Jazz project stopped, and then I started making music with my now husband, who is Austrian, so that's another topic of East versus West.
But rather East and West,
East
not
and West.
versus, right?
Yeah, depends. Hello, he's over there. What did I want to say? So yeah, I mean, on the other hand, this is a book that I just realized maybe I should bring. The Encyclopedia of Croatian Millennial Rock. I mean, it's not just rock, it's also pop and so on. And my band is in there, so I'm very proud. But I just checked out the four...
Choco Jazz or don't go?
Choco Jazz. Yeah, it's like the kind of the Croatian. Yeah. And there's like a huge list of Croatian music critics who write about pop music. And there's only one woman in there, and there's like 20 guys. So just another thing. Maybe that's another topic. I mean, what I had to deal with, and what we had to deal with as two women on stage, we had to learn our way to deal with all the sound guys, and I'm saying sound guys because I haven't met a sound woman until I came to Austria to play a gig. I was blown away by that. There were some really bad comments on my certain body parts after I came off stage from a really famous Croatian singer guy whom I expected would maybe give me a compliment on my awesome performance, but instead he just like gave a compliment to something else, and I was really shaken. But you're 22 and you somehow think, okay, just go with it, whatever. On the other hand, I see that things are going for the better. There have always been actually quite loud and active lesbian acts in Zagreb that we often play together with, like Lesbor. Maybe someone has heard of them. I don't know. They're like a lesbian choir. A really nice pun, because Zbor means choir in Croatian, so Lesbor. There's definitely visibility, I think, at least of, let's say lesbian population, but not much other diversity so far. I don't know, did I answer your question now?
I don't remember either, but I'm sure.
Fair enough.
Thank you. Julia, as you are, you're not a musician, but you work for a management and booking agency and PR agency. How diverse is your roster? How diverse is your roster?
Well, unfortunately, it's not that diverse, as you may have imagined. We only have 2 bands that have female musicians. Actually, one of them is a quartet, and is a female quartet. So they make up for all the others, and but all the other artists are guys. I mean, boy bands. Because maybe this is specific because we work with alternative music, indie music, and usually, as far as I know, in Romania, there are many guys who play alternative music. Maybe that's the thing in all the countries. But it's growing. I mean, the number of female music producers or songwriters or vocalists or guitar players is growing in Romania. And I wanted to point out something, because there's this whole discussion about whether or not festivals should have a balanced lineup with the female and male artists. And from my point of view is that the bookers shouldn't book a female artist just because they want to tick that that gender equality box. It should be done in regard of the value of that artist. So this kind of let's push the boundaries and I don't know, promote intensively female artists or female workers just because we need to do that because of political correctness or something. I'm not sure if it's very sane.
Mm-hmm. But don't you think that that the bands that are considered to be valuable and good are mostly male? Because I mean, there's so many issues that are tied inside this whole aspect. For example, the good bands are male, supposedly, because they get more support, financial support, and more support from the parents to decide to become musicians. So what is actually needed is to promote more female or more diversity, is more role models.
That's for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Which can be done, for example, by booking more diverse programming, or also by having a more diverse, people sitting in juries who decide who gets funding, who gets support, and everything like that. So, while I obviously agree that no band should be booked only because of their gender or race or class or whatever, there needs to be more promoting going on of diverse acts in order for them to become big acts.
Of course, and I think that this only leads to education. So if we start with a very good education regarding music, regarding gender balance and everything, then at one point we wouldn't have this conversation anymore. I mean, it wouldn't be necessary. But because we have this whole tradition of years and years of perpetuating the same role models, we need to educate the younger generations and to not feel this barrier between the two genres, two genders. Sorry.
May I also add one thing to this topic?
Yes,
Thank
you
you.
may.
I also think ideally we do not need such measures. Mm-hmm. Ideally. That's the end goal, not to need these measures anymore. But I think they can be very useful, and just like Ida said, in creating role models, because also growing up and wanting to make music, not seeing other women doing that made me feel like I also shouldn't, will never be able to, because it's only what guys do. One huge, I think this is maybe different when you want to be a singer, because there are plenty of female singers, but my parents told me I should play the piano, but my brother, when he went to music school, he got to play the guitar because he's the boy. So there's still a lot of attributing certain, exactly, to instruments, and not to mention drums, and not to even mention music technology, so producing electronic music, sound engineering, like all these things that have to do with technology, something I'm actually extremely interested in, but deep down inside of me, I'm terrified by these things, because somehow I just think something tells me that is just not for me, and that's not true. And I have to say that when I went to the Intertonale seminar, maybe some of you know who are more familiar with the Austrian music scene, it was a beautiful workshop, 1 week long, where Sophie Lindinger and Marco Kleber from Lea, they gave a music production workshop. And for me, this was, I think if it was just him, I think I maybe wouldn't have dared to apply. But somehow seeing she's doing this stuff, and so that means maybe I can also do it. It was the best thing I ever did. And we really talked then a lot about exactly the importance of role models, of someone you can identify with when you see them doing something that might interest you as well.
Mm-hmm. Can I also point out something? I find it very I agree, but I disagree on that point where you have this like quota question and how many women should we, how do you say, fördern, Entschuldigung. Support, how many women should we support, fund, whatever. You have all these men saying then, oh yeah, so we don't need to support women, we don't need quotas because good culture will always find its way, good music will always find its way. And then when you start talking about quotas, you know, pushing women, what about men, huh? What about, why not men find their own way if they're so good? So I you know, it's like there's also this double standard, and I also think it's a question of being neutral to very pressing topics. For example, unfortunately, my existence as a woman is somehow a political situation. It is what it is. But you know, and I cannot be neutral to the question of if there is a quota thing going on, because as a woman, I am hurting in certain spheres. You know, there's this psychological thing going on where you have this like almost brainwashing, okay? I think it really is. So this kind of brainwashing, you cannot do rock music, you cannot be an unhinged woman, which is a whole other topic, but it's like, I cannot be neutral to it. I want quotas, and I think it's a good approach, and yeah, there's a question.
Yeah, but you have to stand
okay.
up and... no, it's not on, but we have...
Hello? Yeah, just a quick impulse, because I was at some workshop and I haven't been able to fact check it because I think it was just an idea, but someone brought up something that might be happening in Berlin, which is that for certain cultural funding, they're talking about a quota which is in another direction, saying they're only going to fund 40% of white males, or 40% of males. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a really interesting way of turning the discussion around. Because instead of really pointing out and saying, well, we're going to give gifts or special favors to this one sector, we're just saying, well, here's the reality. You know, we are going to reduce who we normally give all our funding to and open up the discussion without categorizing specifically how we rearrange that support. Just something I thought about.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that was the D-Arts conference, right? Yes. Exactly. Wait a second. I wanted to also add once again. It all comes, not everything, but a huge part is who decides who gets support. So once again, it's the people in the juries, the teams, in all teams, not just the musicians, but everything needs to be diverse. And then more diverse programming will come automatically, I would say. Automatically, maybe not, but it would facilitate, definitely, this issue. Do you have anything to add to it, Julia? Because...
Yeah, I somehow started a different topic. Don't get me wrong, I completely agree with quotas and everything, but what I sensed is a tendency of just doing it because we have to, because of, I don't know, political correctness. But coming back to artists and female artists versus male artists, I think that this is kindly and, I don't know, slowly changing, because as I've seen it in Romania, there are more and more young people who have other models than the ones we had in our youth, let's say. Yes, it's true, it's very, very strange to be a female drummer, for instance, but now I've seen that there are some drummers who are just in their 15s, I mean, no, they're 15 or 16 or 17, and they are really rocking the stages. So let's put it this way. And I think that the new generation, the younger generation, in 20 years' time, the industry would look completely different than the one we have today. And this is a good thing. And as I said, I think it comes from education and from this openness, because now we have the internet, we have a lot of ways of connecting to each other. Before it was only, for instance, in Romania, and I think that this was valid for all the countries, during communist time you only had one TV station, one radio station, and one record label, and they were all owned by the state. So the state basically choose what to promote and what culture to give to the people. Let's put it that way. But now the number is obviously growing and growing, and with all this freedom and with all this freedom of expression and freedom of creating stuff, change is going to come. It takes time. I mean, we are now in Romania 30 years from the revolution, from when the communist regime changed, but things are slowly changing, and I really appreciate that. Mm-hmm. I'm very happy that we are living the times that we are living nowadays, and we have the opportunities to do what we do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Since Ariana opened the, that's exactly what I wanted to ask. Are there any questions from the audience, please? Yeah, it's on.
So you just spoke about it, and I was wondering, when we talk about East and West, we mean former communist and capitalist.
Yes.
So I was wondering if we rephrase it that way, how do you feel like, what are feminist issues that arise from former communist systems versus capitalist ones?
Mm-hmm.
That's a gigantic question and a very good one.
And a difficult one.
And an incredibly difficult one.
Can I start?
Yes.
There's such a thing as Marxist feminism. So the woman is, on paper again, in communism, the woman is very empowered, but it is also part of a propaganda machine, It's, of course, it's also very hard to find exact data from those times, because it's all very, propaganda driven. And during the totalitarian time, I don't trust any data from from that era, So I think it is kind of similar, because you have capitalism, which we consider to be also a patriarchal structure, and we have on the other side the authoritarian and even totalitarian communist regime. So it is in some ways similar, but it's a question of how we look at the modern level of oppression, or the nowadays level of oppression. So, for example, you have here we had this 60s, 70s feminist revolution thing going on in the West, in the capitalist West, and you didn't have that during the communist era. So this is historically also something that plays a lot into it. So you didn't even come into touch with these ideas. And today, in Ukraine, for example, best example ever, you have pastors going on TV and saying feminism is a sin, and you are all sinners, and you deserve to burn in hell. And so it's So there is definitely some. I hope that there will be some kind of their own feminist revolution that maybe simulates what was going on in the 60s and the 70s, where you have this sexual liberation and all these kinds of things, because there are very prominent not institutions, but associations, like, for example, Femen or so, but it is still very shunned upon. The general public really, it is the general public that needs to be convinced to go the other way, and it is also mainly men that need to be educated. So you don't have to only educate women on the issue of what it means to be feminist, but also like men. And in capitalist society, you have at least more awareness how to even consume information, because only if you have access to information doesn't mean that you really know how to automatically use it. And also if you live in a super toxic household, for example, yeah, where you have sometimes problems of alcoholism, yeah, you have depravity, you have all kinds of, you know, struggles, daily struggles, real acute struggles, where it's like, do I eat tomorrow or do I not eat tomorrow? So, and in capitalist societies, you have this neoliberal idea. So everybody, you know, tries to earn some money. So there's at least some kind of financial stability going on with what we consider to be like academically more evolved. Or I don't know how to say that. I'm sorry. My English is so much better when I'm home alone and talking to a mirror. It's amazingly good, yeah. But here it's like not good. So, so you have a kind of financial market in the capitalist societies that includes the woman much more. Yes, but it is still inside of this patriarchal, this binary.
Absolutely.
form.
And if I may just add to this, that within the capitalist society, I mean, it comes down to consumerism, and women are free to consume, right? And on the other hand, but is that really liberation? And on the other hand, you have this what is called lean-in culture that is promoted by, amongst others, Sheryl Sandberg, who basically says, I mean, she wrote this book, Lean In. As you may have gathered, I'm not a fan. And she basically wrote, she's the CEO of Facebook or whatever. And she wrote, as a woman, you can achieve everything. You can achieve everything as long as you try, as long as you really want to. And that's BS. Because, I mean, obviously it is, because there's so much going on, and it's you need to have, she comes from a very privileged position, and if you're not as privileged as her, you'll face difficulties to no end, really. So I think this is also different between the former communist and the capitalist cultures, that we have this maybe on the surface level freedom, and feminism has turned into a buzzword, just as diversity, but it's not really promoted like on all levels. Does this kind of...
Yeah, there's this term white feminism,
which I
find
neoliberal feminism
very great. Like this, there's even this phrase which I find fascinating, is gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss, which I find very incredible. Yeah, it describes this thing of, like, as you said, like you come from a certain privileged household, from a capitalist household, and then you're like, yeah, women can do anything. I have to disagree. I think women can do anything if they want to. There are examples of women who really push through all obstacle limits and whatever, and they still ended up getting their goal. But the sacrifices they had to make into getting there are so tragic. If you look at like every female biography, you know, and you really look deep into it, and you ask yourself, would I be able to make these sacrifices? Like, I don't think that the writer of this book would have maybe made certain sacrifices like women from 50 years ago. So, yeah. It's sad. It's tragic. I'm sorry.
I know.
I could also maybe add again a little personal, I don't know, memory or so to say, because just comparing my mother's attitudes about work and so on, and my grandma's and my own, I see that for the generation who grew up in Yugoslavia, in ex-Yugoslavia, I mean, safety, having a safe job that you get once you finish your education, you get your job, you're there your whole life, you're safe, happy, everyone's happy, that's it. So this kind of safety was really an ideal.
Yeah.
I don't know if this
was the same in Romania.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not really an expert now in this whole topic globally, or so to say. But I do know that this kind of attitude could be quite seen as typical for some kind of socialist heritage, whereas any kind of risk-taking and like entrepreneurism and all these things that has more, I guess, roots in the capitalist thinking. And then this especially affects women, because if you are a woman and you want to be, I don't know, an artist or a musician and a mom, and then your mom thinks you're completely insane because you need a safe job.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Also,
You-
like
I'm sorry, Julia wanted to add something as well.
I want to just add a small thing. What I noticed is that being a woman, generally speaking, you have to work more than a man in order to prove that you are professional, you're serious, you're good at your job. It's more of an effort, and
It's more work.
and more work, yeah, more effort and more work. And I think that it's very much related also to confidence, because we as women tend to not be so confident in our own strength, and men usually are more, more.
they're raised confident.
Yeah,
you know?
they are
It's-
raised
yes,
confident
yes,
somehow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. For example, when I may add also like personal experience, when I was like smaller child, they always told me like, oh, feminist, it's like a phase, it's like some kind of, I don't know, punk phase, calling yourself a feminist or something. So she'll grow out of it, she'll find a husband, yeah, and she'll raise some beautiful children, and I'm like, what the fuck? Excuse me. I don't know, sorry. But like, it's insane. And I'm still standing here, It doesn't matter if I have a husband or not, but since I can remember myself, it's always like I come in and it's like, why don't you look like a woman? You'll never find a man. As if this was like my fault, from the universe, that I was like, born fabulous. I don't know. It's like, it's not my fault, And, but you're
So much for
constantly,
confidence.
it's kind of brainwashing. For example, I spent the last month in Ukraine, yeah? And I was at my aunt's place, and she's like homophobic and has all these other things. But she's like, still a decent human being. It's a very gray area, It's very complicated for me to psychologically deal with all of this. So, and she's like, so, you don't look like a woman. You don't. And she's like, and I spent a month there, and then I was like, I should maybe cut my hair. I should maybe look a little more, I should maybe conform a little bit more to this stereotypical image of femininity. And it wasn't like I was thinking, oh, I have to comply now because everybody sucks, yeah? No, it was like, after a time, you get tired, you get exhausted. Your energies, your precious energies, everybody has them, they're being sucked out of this, yeah? And you have to protect them with all costs and really find out what it is you want to be, either if you want to portray a certain type of femininity, if you want to perform this femininity, or if you just don't want to be in this binary system of gender representation. Just, it is so hard to know that for yourself. And I think a lot of people underestimate that. They're like, why don't women just make their own choices, yeah? Yeah, women try to make their own choices, but you're being constantly bombarded from all sides, and especially in Ukraine, where you have to it's constant brainwashing going on. Yes, sorry.
Okay, I try my bad English. There are some data about women and men, or male and female, that when two persons want to apply for a job, and the male, there are 10 points you need to reach to get a job. And if the man has 2 points of the 10, you say, yes, I'm perfect for the job. Mm-hmm. And the woman has 8 from 10 and say, I'm not sure, I'm not having 10 points, so I think we need to support more women. And I come back to the quotes, because I think this could be a chance for all the promoters and all the male music business to open their eyes to look for, because there are so many women, they are technicians, they're musicians. You need to look for all these women, I think. And since 6 years, I'm running a festival, all-female rap festival in Berlin. And some people say, oh, there are no so many good MCs in the world or in Europe or Germany. But when you are searching through the web, you can find so many MCs and so many artists.
More work.
And yes,
Absolutely.
and looking for female technicians and all this, it's not easy. You need time, you need to ask people, and I think this is, yeah, we should support, we should open our eyes, and all the promoters and all the
This
music.
is also what I hear so much, so often, really, is yeah, we would like to book, we would like to feature more female musicians or more diverse musicians, but there just aren't any. But it just, it takes more time to search for them because they don't get the support from media, from funding, and et cetera, really. And of course, educational issues as well.
Yeah.
Now, we have like 5 minutes left. So you have a question? Yeah, you have a question. It's on.
So, yeah, I'm sitting here, and it's one of the best panels I've been here, and it's a very important topic, gender equality. And then I turn around and I see just one man and me here in the audience, and I feel it's a little bit sad. So it's my feeling, because it's the most important topic we are facing right now, and we are all the men in the industry. And I'm not standing here to self-promote myself, but we have a music business, but also we have a company. It's called Women with Wow, and we are leading it as men, but we want to support women and raise the awareness for men to also see that this room also gets full of men, because that's important, you know? Because
Absolutely.
you can't fight alone. For a topic, you need two parties. So that's, for me, I just wanted to stand up and raise the awareness about that.
Yes, thank you for
Yeah,
that.
thank
Really,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
And that's also a very, very important issue that that we need the support of men to be able to strive and be more visible. Yeah, but who am I telling this? Actually. Yeah, the people on the stream. All right. So, yes, of course.
I'm so glad you said that, because I was thinking the same. I was thinking maybe
It was-
for the
sorry,
program.
Sorry, just because I
Yeah.
wanted to say, 2 years ago I hosted a panel here about women in music production. Same, only women. I think 2 men were present. So
Shame your male friends now.
No, but exactly not. I think shame is not the thing. And I think I was thinking the same thing, and I was thinking I would love to see a
I
panel.
was joking, don't shame them.
Yeah, of course. But it's something I was thinking about, that I would love to see a panel of either all men or more men. And I know this is also a difficult thing. We all want to advocate for ourselves. We certainly don't want, I'm sorry, a bunch of men telling women what to do. Not at all. And that's not what I'm thinking. But what I am thinking is there's a lot of defensiveness, and there's a lot of, in this case, maybe men not even knowing if they can speak right now. Do they have a place in this conversation? I think there's a lot of, to go back to the word binary, I think that that's really happening in these discussions, and I think it really takes a lot more openness, safe spaces, as cheesy as that sounds, to be able to say, well, but I also struggle with this from the male perspective. And I think that's really important in these discussions. I just was thinking that. Thank you.
Yeah.
no, absolutely. I think that's also a very important topic. Also from personal experience, I have had this discussion, this conversation, lots of times with my boyfriend, for example, because he doesn't know how to do stuff, and then he just says nothing because he's afraid to do anything wrong. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have like final remarks, because we have only 2 minutes left?
Yeah, I'm inspired. Just like we now actually came to this point, for me personally, feminism is about equality. And this is something I'm trying to live and implement in my work with the band On Go, because the band consists of me and my husband. We have a child as well. So all this topic about family, I mean, I don't know if I can call this a career, but like I love music and I'll be
Of course
doing it
you
forever.
can.
Yeah. Exactly, and this is what we're striving for, and this is how you live it. You live this equality every day, because you split housework 50-50, you split other work 50-50 as much as you can. And that's so hard because, again, there are not many role models out there. Surely not my parents and so on. So this is really hard. But I think it's worth it. And speaking about not enough female musicians, like we used to play as a duo, and now we decided to include more musicians in our live act. And it was very important to both of us, actually, that these two persons joining us on stage are, so to say, not male, it's people we knew, so they are women. And I think this picture of having 4 people on stage, only one of which is a man, is also somehow changing this stereotypical picture which used to be other way around. So yeah, I think we can all make a contribution to more equality somehow, as much as we can.
Absolutely. And to I don't know, at the end come back to the role models. This is why we have the MEWEM project right now. So we have mentors and mentees paired up who hopefully inspire each other as well. And yeah, and support each other. And right now, as we are out of time, unfortunately, I'm sure, I mean, I would have had questions to no end, really. Yeah, I just wanted to say there is going to be a reception right now. There will be some sparkling wine, I think, and yes, and some sweet stuff. So please stick around. If you have any questions to any of us, we'll be here and would love to get to know you and talk about whatever. And also, please make sure not to miss. Don't go tomorrow. 6:45 Canisiuskirche. So thank you very much for coming.
Okay? No, just like charged.
I'm okay.
It's really hard. I'm like sweating somehow. Every pore.
That's what I wanted to ask. Is it only me or
No.